Okay, folks. Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening. I'm sorry I'm late today, guys. Just juggling a couple things. So, you may not just be waking up to this news, but a couple of things here. Last night's overnight drone attack, the Russians were able to field 55 drones against Ukraine. 18 of those were taken out with active countermeasures. Another 34 were shot down. 3 drones hit targets in Ukraine, mostly falling on residential buildings in Chernihiv, continuing the terror campaign against civilians in Ukraine. Now, the one thing that I really want to talk about today are dominoes and dominoes to watch. And it looks to me like the 3 big dominoes right now. We've already seen Armenia fall, right? Armenia is clearly turning away from Moscow to the west. Syria is fallen, turned right away from Moscow and is turning toward the west. Now, on our bingo cards, the 2 big ones are Moldova and Georgia. They're both lined up to fall one way or the other, toward Moscow or toward the west. Slovakia is a problem. There are thousands of people in the streets demonstrating against this guy. This guy, like the other Putin puppeteer in Europe, Viktor Orban, is a pro-Kremlin, anti-EU, anti-democracy Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico. Now, this guy just traveled to Moscow to bitch about Kyiv shutting down the gas pipeline, even though the Slovakians knew for 3 years that this was coming. What did the Czechs do? The Czechs completed the extension of the Transalpine gas pipeline so they can get their gas from Italy, not Russia, right? Everybody knew that this was coming. There was no reason not to. What does this guy do? He turns around and he accuses Kyiv of blackmailing Slovakia. They knew that this was coming. They knew that it was in Kyiv's best interest to shut that gas down. They knew that their dependency on Moscow was making them weak. They did nothing about it. Listen to Putin whispering in their ears, "Don't worry about it. We'll keep that gas on. You're not going to suffer. We're in control." Right? The Ukrainians will never shut it down. It's too much money in their pockets. Don't worry about it. Then there's reality. That not everybody is a slave to Moscow. Not everybody is a slave to the free rubles that fall from the table of Herr Putler and scramble for them. We're not all in his pocket. After threatening Kyiv with military action, after calling Ukraine beggars and blackmailers and thieves, after threatening the refugees, the Ukrainian refugees in Slovakia, with cutting off their benefits or deporting them from the country, Mr. Fico is now facing, and his government are now facing, a vote of no confidence. This is important. If Slovakia falls to the West, if the people of Slovakia can rise up and tell this pro-Putin, pro-authoritarian piece of shit to go fuck himself and his government and install a pro-Western, Western-facing government, it'll be good news for all of us, right? So the next domino to watch, in my opinion, is Slovakia. If I'm not mistaken, that vote of no confidence is coming right up on the 27th. That could trigger new elections and a new government having to be formed. The government of this pro-Putin piece of shit is just hanging on by its own bleeding fingernails. We'll see what happens in the coming weeks. All right, that's it for me today. There's overnight last night, the Ukrainians hit a bunch of targets inside of Russia. But rather than just doing a list here, I'm going to do a bunch of videos on TikTok, so look for them there. And thanks for joining me today. I'll see you tonight in the live.